was, we'll go under the water and perform austerities. Imagine, that was their the austerity they wanted to perform. So they're walking towards a lake, a very sacred place, very serene condition. And as they were walking towards the lake, from the other side, who came from the water? None other than Lord Shiva, along with his associates, walks towards the Prachetas. Imagine Lord Shiva, they are going to perform austerity from 10,000 years. And Lord Shiva himself is coming in front of them. Right? And then these Prachetas are like, Lord Shiva, it is so hard to get the darshan of Lord Shiva, but here Lord Shiva has personally come in front of the Prachetas. And then Lord Shiva speaks this verse. And what is he saying in this verse? Why did Lord Shiva appear in front of these personalities, Prachetas? And he actually says, you all, O Prachetas, you are all devotees of Lord Krishna. And because you are devotees of Lord Krishna, I appreciate you, and you are as respectable as the Lord himself. And then further he says, I know in this way the devotees also respect me. So, in India it is, unfortunately, like people, they have this, almost like a fight that, oh, I am Vishnu Bhakta, you are Shiva Bhakta, different category. And then Shiva is supreme, Vishnu is supreme. They have this conflict in their mind. But Bhagavatam is giving the perfect understanding of who Lord Shiva is. And what does Bhagavatam here? Lord Shiva himself is saying, I know in this way that the devotees of Krishna also respect me. And I am dear to them. So if you are a devotee of Krishna, then we are very dear to Lord Shiva. Right? And he says, no one can be as dear to the devotees as I am. Because, and we'll read Prabhupada's purport. He explains why. For the devotees of Krishna, Lord Shiva is saying, no one is more dear than me. Right? And why is that? So let's read Prabhupada's purport. It is said, Vaishnavanam yatha Shambhu. Lord Shiva is the best of all devotees. With all the confusion that people have of Shiva, in one sentence, Prabhupada is clearing the whole grounds. That Lord Shiva is the best of all devotees. Therefore, all devotees of Lord Krishna are also devotees of Lord Shiva. Right? And then further he says, in Vrindavan there is Lord Shiva's temple called Gopeshwara. Right? And the gopis used to worship not only Lord Shiva, but Katyayani or Durga as well. But their aim was to attain the favor of Lord Krishna. Right? So we know in Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto, in our Krishna book, we read about how the gopis, they were worshipping Katyayani. But why did they do? So if you see our Vaishnava calendar, immediately after Kartik ends, Katyayani Vrat starts. And the gopis are doing this, they are worshipping Durga. Why? Their only intention is, please connect us to Krishna. Please give us that favor of Krishna. And then further, Prabhupada says, a devotee of Lord Krishna does not disrespect Lord Shiva, but worships Lord Shiva as the most exalted devotee of Lord Krishna. Consequently, whenever a devotee worships Lord Shiva, he prays to Lord Shiva to achieve the favor of Krishna, and he does not request material profit. In the Bhagavad Gita 7.20, it is said, it is said that generally people worship demigods for some material profit. Kamestase ritagyana prapadyante anya devata. Driven by material lust, they worship demigods. But the devotee never does so, for he is never driven by material lust. That is the difference between a devotee's respect for Lord Shiva and an asura's respect for him. The asura worships Lord Shiva, takes some benediction from him, misuses the benediction, and ultimately is killed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead who awaits liberation. And perfect example of this is Bhasmasur, okay, but Ravana also, right? Bhasmasur also, Vishnu tricked him that he killed himself, but yes, it was Vishnu's hand. But Ravan, so it is said that how Ravan was so powerful that when he came to Mount Kailash, he said like, Mount Kailash, I can lift this mountain. Right? And he actually lifted Mount Kailash. Ravan lifted Mount Kailash. And then Parvati was like, what's happening, Prabhu? Is there an earthquake here in Mount Kailash? Right? And then Lord Shiva says, no, I know. And then with his toe, he just presses the mountain. And just with his toe he presses, And then Raman's hand is caught in between the mountain. And he's stuck up there. Right? And then he's stuck up and he doesn't know what to do because Lord Shiva's toe is pressing the mountain. And he's stuck up and he's thinking like, okay, what can I do? And Nandishwar actually comes. You want to get free? Chant prayers, glorify Lord Shiva. He is very easily pleased. And then immediately Raman actually composes verses to glorify Lord Shiva. Right? And he starts glorifying Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva is very pleased. And he says, okay, Raman, what do you want? And Raman basically, he prays, let me not kill by anyone. And he mentions everyone except human beings. He said, human beings, who can a human being kill me? And that's how Lord Ramchandra came in the form of a human being and killed him. So Prabhupada is saying that these demons, ultimately they are killed by Supreme Personality of Godhead as Lord Ramchandra, and by that they get liberation. Right? Further, because Lord Shiva is a great devotee of Supreme Personality of Godhead, he loves all the devotees of the Supreme Lord. Lord Shiva told the Prachetas that because they were devotees of the Lord, he loved them very much. Lord Shiva was not kind and merciful only to the Prachetas, but anyone who is a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very dear to Lord Shiva. Not only are the devotees dear to Lord Shiva, but he respects them as much as he respects the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Similarly, devotees of the Supreme Lord also worship Lord Shiva as the most dear devotee of Lord Krishna. They do not worship him as a separate personality of Godhead. It is said in a list of the Nam Apras that it is an offense to think that the chantings of the name of Hari and chanting the name of Hara or Shiva are the same. The devotees must always know that Lord Vishnu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and Lord Shiva is his devotee. A devotee should be offered respect on the level of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and sometimes even more respect. Indeed, Lord Ram, Supreme Personality of Godhead, sometimes worship Lord Shiva. Right? And if a devotee is worshipped by Lord, why should a devotee not be worshipped by other devotees on the same level with the Lord? This is the conclusion. From this verse, it appears that Lord Shiva blesses the Asuras simply for the sake of formality. Actually, he loves one who is devoted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such a beautiful purport by Srila Prabhupada. Like all the concepts are so clearly explained by Srila Prabhupada in this. Right? So let's discuss few points on Lord Shiva. So Prabhupada also mentioned, okay, let's start off with this point. Like how do we understand the tattva of Lord Shiva? And then we'll come to a few pastimes. Right? So it is described like in Bhagavad Gita. We see how in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is not only explaining to Arjun how we can live in this world, right? He talks of karma yoga, he talks of how living in this world without attachment to the results, right? And finally he takes Arjun higher and comes to the conclusion of bhakti yoga, right? And he also makes the point in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita that he says this entire material world is dukkhalayam ashashvatam. It is a place of miseries and is temporary. He makes this point in Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna, like in Bhagavad Gita, he gives us kind of a hint, a very clear hint, but he doesn't explain too much, that this material world is a place of suffering. But beyond this is what? The spiritual world. Vaikunta, we say, means no kunta, no suffering there. So Krishna is in Bhagavad Gita not only telling us how we can live in this world, but he's saying you live in this world in such a way that in your next life you can go back to the spiritual world. Because this place is a place of misery. There are going to be problems in this place. Right? How much ever we make material arrangements in this place, problems are not going to cease. This is the nature of the world. Right? So we live a life in such a way that at the time of death, we are qualified to enter into the spiritual reality. And Krishna actually, he just gives a few verses like Tasmat. I'm forgetting the verse. But he basically makes the point in 8th chapter, text 20 and 21. Parastasmatu bhavanyo vyakto vyaktat sanatana. That he says, the material world, it comes into existence, stays for some time and gets annihilated. The spiritual world, he says, unlike this material world, is a place where there is no annihilation. It is eternal. Right? And we are what? Sat Chit Ananda. That's our position. Sat, Chit and Ananda. We are eternal. And just the presence of the eternal soul in this temporary world itself is an uncomfortable situation. Hence our aspiration should be what? That we want to go back to a place which is also Sat, eternal. Right? That's what we want to go back to. Right? So Krishna briefly talks about the spiritual world, and he says how this material world is like kind of a reflection of the original reality. And further in our Bhagavatam and other scriptures, it describes of what the spiritual world is. What is the spiritual? Like if we have to make an aspiration to go back to the spiritual world, we need to know more to be really motivated to go back. And in the spiritual world, we come to know that Krishna is actually the supreme enjoyer. Nectar of Devotion says what? Akhila Rasamrita Murti. Krishna is Akhila Rasamrita Murti, means the supreme enjoyer. Right? So Prabhupada quotes this one German philosopher who came to India and he visited different temples in India. Right? Ganesh, Lord Shiva, Durga. He went to all different temples and he came to a temple of Krishna. And just by visiting all the temples, he said, I'm convinced Krishna is the supreme. And other people were like, we have been going to all these temples for so many years. We ourselves are confused. How come you just came, you went around, and you are convinced that Krishna is the supreme? Right? And he actually made the point, Prabhupada quotes this, that he made the point that when I went to all the other temples, I saw people, they were doing something. Right? Lord Shiva, what is he always doing? Meditating. Right? Other than me of Durga, she's always like a trident, ready to punish people. Everyone is doing something. But what is Krishna doing? Playing the flute, standing with his girlfriend. He just enjoys. He's the supreme enjoyer. Right? So Krishna, we know he's a supreme enjoyer. Like what is Krishna's to-do list every day morning? He gets up, like we get up and we have our to-do list. Today I have to do this, do this. Krishna's to-do list, he gets up in the morning, he's like, today, this house I will go and steal butter. Then I will go, I'll kill this demon, just for fun. I'll kill this demon. Then evening, I'll have some fun with the gopis. Like his entire existence is just to enjoy. He is the supreme enjoyer. Right? Now, when we understand Krishna as a supreme enjoyer, there are people like us who turn away from Krishna. Right? Just like Prabhupada gives the example that when the government is building a particular city, when they are building the city, they already plan that this is a prison house. I mean, you're building the city, why do you need a prison house? Because you know as soon as there are rules, there are going to be people who are going to break the rules. Everyone is devoted to Krishna in the spiritual reality, but there are people, unfortunate people like us, who actually turn away from Krishna. And Krishna has to create one way the material world for us. But he, being the supreme enjoyer, he personally does not have to take this task. He just lies on this ocean which is known as Karundakshay Vishnu, and all he does for creation is just he breathes. Just by breathing, all these universes are coming into existence. And when these universes come into existence, then he just glances upon the universe. Right? So the universes are like, we say this is one material universe, one Brahmanda. Brahma is the creator here. Right? This entire material universe, like initially the bubble, this universe comes into existence, but it is just elements. How do we living entities enter into this